No, Kumstvo is derived. The term is derived from a word that we all know, because it is also in Latvian. Kum, you know what is kum or kums, is a godfather or godmother. And basically it is godfatherhood or godmotherhood in Montenegrin society. And also in the related societies around there, both Slavic, non-Slavic, both Christian and non-Christian. But what is interesting there is specifically in Montenegro, because there are different kinds of godparenthoods described in the areas of around Mediterranean and in Latin America. But in Montenegro it is particularly interesting because it is not hierarchical, meaning that people who enter in these relationships become partners, but not necessarily that one is a godparent. Well, everybody knows who is godparent and who is godson or goddaughter, but it is creating a kind of relatedness among them. And Montenegrins, when you ask, especially the older generation, what they think, how would they describe, one of the first things is that they say Kumstvo is sacred. So it is something very, very highly venerated in the society, and partly because usually it is created by people who already before that have very good relationships. They are the best friends. And then there are several ways how you become kum to each other, and that's how it is named. Both of them, or basically all of them who are involved, all the families from both sides become kum to each other. So without difference who is godfather and godmother, that's the secondary importance. Well, and the tradition is that you cannot refuse when somebody offers you to become kum, and you can become. There are two different ways. Either you invite your best friend to be your kum in your marriage, and that would be the one who is holding the crown above your head when you are getting married, and then you become kum by marriage. But another is when you have a kid, and then you invite somebody to become godmother or godfather, like that. Now, and you usually invite somebody whom you really, really like. That's your best person in the world. But that best person also is not allowed to refuse. So there have been described different kinds of manipulations with that. For instance, a thief who is caught in action stealing somebody's goods can offer kumstvo to that owner of the goods, and the owner cannot refuse. So he has to accept this kumstvo, and by that they become relatives, and they cannot he cannot anymore punish that person who is stealing because they are now in the most sacred relationships. Same has been described, for instance, if somebody is drowning and he sees that there is somebody, or she, basically, mostly very patriarchal society, it is about them as males. So if he sees that and he's drowning and somebody is walking, then you can call out and say, please save me, I invite you to be my kum. And again, this makes that other person accept it, and you have to do everything for your kum. That's the basic rule. Now, of course, when it comes to bureaucracies and these rule-based structures, then this clearly goes against these bureaucratic one law for everybody principles and no case-to-case decision, because if your kum approaches you, of course that's a very specific. You are not the same person as anybody else. So there is certain friction between these two situations, and because of that, Kumstvo is very often linked to different kinds of nepotism cases, and journalists go and sometimes try to figure out who is whom, because in Montenegro everybody knows more or less who is related to whom by surname. In Latvia also surname somehow guides, but it is much more difficult to establish who is whose relative by surname. In Montenegro it is much more public knowledge. But then another way of being related is through this Kumstvo, which is much more flexible. Everybody is born into certain family, into certain district, and those people who are from your family or your district are more likely to help you in life. But this is an inflexible. But Kumstvo offers certain way of flexibility where you can choose who is going to be your friend that is going to help you. Now, and this leads also to some other thing that I realized looking at informal things, is that usually the first reaction towards informality is that it is somehow related to corruption, just as Iveta was just saying. Now, and because of that, we tend to think that these people who are involved in these informal, all these dealings, are kind of criminals, kind of towards this bad side of society. But then, when you look at these cases and situations, they are very often linked to people trying to be nice to each other, to be sociable to each other. They try to help. That somebody comes to somebody you know comes to you as a bureaucrat, and now what are you supposed to do? Play a bureaucrat? Be bastards basically to your friend or whom you have been know? You say no, I don't know you. You are just the same as everybody. No, you want to be nice. And these cases are very often. For instance, there was a very revealing, a small case study done by one of our former students in Riga, where she was studying how photographers take unofficial payments for their jobs. And she said that she were doing some interviews. And the photographers said that they just want not to be impolite to their clients. They want to be friendly to the clients, and because of that, they do not ask all these official papers and everything. They just take money in cash. So it very often goes with this wish to be nice. Now, and I think that basically, when we go on a larger scale, people like to be informal. It is much more cozy. It is much more social. It is friendly, after all. So with friends you are informal, and our life is basically informal. Our families are informal. Everything, our friends, and we go on the streets mostly about our lives in informal ways, because those are more friendly, more nice, more cozy and warm. But then there are also situations where we do not want to be too formal, right? If you are in certain situation, for instance, you go on in some kind of official setting, I don't know, in a parliament, and suddenly somebody calls you very informally, grabs you by hands and hugs you and something. Maybe it is not particularly nice. And there are, and then I think that we also tend to think that kind of, if we will not be very strict in our requirements for formality, then everything will go into informality and chaos after all. But what we also saw last week and in the conference and especially in the Balkan case where people have been thrown into some kind of chaotic situation in Balkan wars, for instance in Sarajevo, there is a very nice ethnographic case of how people spontaneously try to create some kind of formality around them, because it also gives some obvious benefits. So it is not only like spontaneously everything goes just towards informality and chaos, and we need always some kind of I don't know, Leviathan above us who will make us stick to the rules. But people also like to stick to the rules. So we are always somewhere in between these two ends.